We have been in a series talking about covenant and looking at what it is that God does. I'm going to leave that up there. And I want to start looking at a different avenue or view of covenant today in terms of what it means to be married to God. My. You know, the scriptures are filled with quotations where God refers to himself as being a husband to Israel. As being in an intimate relationship. The only way sometimes he can describe that intimacy is as a husband and wife. And the Apostle Paul, when he is talking about the relationship in Ephesians of husbands and wives, says, you know, I'm talking about husbands and wives, but really I'm talking about the relationship of Christ to the church. And I'm using that as an analogy. And there's something in understanding the Jewish mindset that opens up the scriptures beyond what we normally see if we keep looking at them through a Western-educated Gentile frame of reference. Back in Genesis chapter 24, and I'm going to quote this out of the Amplified so you can listen rather than look it up, but it's a very familiar story to us about a time when Rebekah was being sought out as a wife. And it was very important that you have the proper woman in your life. And so this is what's recounted in verse 22. The man, that's the servant of Abraham. The servant of Abraham took a gold earring or a nose ring of half a shekel in weight, and for her hands 2 bracelets of 10 shekels in gold. And the servant brought out jewels and silver and jewels of gold and garments and gave them to Rebekah. He also gave precious things to her brother and her mother. And they said, we will call the girl and ask her what is her desire. So they called Rebekah and said to her, will you go with this man? And she said, I will go. And Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent, and he took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. Now that's a synopsis of what took place in that chapter, where Eliezer goes to look for a bride, and he finds the right woman. But what I want you to notice there is what happens when he finds her. It says that he takes out a gold earring or a nose ring and of half a shekel of weight and bracelet of 10 shekels. Now that earring or that nose ring, actually, if you look into the Hebrew, it was a pendant. The weight of it would be a lot of weight on gold to wear it either in your nose or in your earring. That's kind of an English mistranslation of it. But it literally was a pendant. Now, whether that pendant hung around her neck or whether it was a pendant that she strapped on her forehead, it could be one or the other. But that's a massive amount of gold. And for her hands, 2 bracelets of 10 shekels in weight. I mean, these were not just little things. You got 10 shekels weight worth of gold. Something's going on here. I mean, I contrast that with, in our society, a man proposes to a woman and gives her an engagement ring. And so he goes out and spends a few hundreds of dollars maybe to get an engagement ring, or maybe he might get up into the $1,000 range. But what if we start talking about, well, now we're into the tens of thousands of dollars. Tens of thousands of dollars. He is establishing the value of the woman that he wants to marry by paying for what is going to take place. You know, there's a story told, true story, in a village years ago in one of the islands. I'm not sure where in the Pacific it was, but it was one of the Pacific islands, and there was a man there who was a tribal leader, and he had a number of daughters. They all got married, but he had one daughter, and no suitor ever showed up for her because she was, to put it politely, ugly. And finally, one day, he thought he was never going to marry this girl off, and one day, a young man from the village came, and he asked if he could marry this man's last daughter, if he could marry her. And the whole village gathered for this kind of thing. It's very Jewish. What they did, by the way, is that there is a separation between the actual engagement process and the marriage. But engagement process is not just, oh, I like you, would you get engaged? You're establishing a covenant then. You're formalizing the covenant when you come to the wedding, because between the engagement and the wedding, there's things you need to do. But in this village, what they would exchange was cows. And so what was typical was you might come and say, I will give you, sir, I'm going to give the father a cow, and I get his daughter. Now, we won't get into the things about that, but I'm going to give you this cow for the daughter. So that if you went and you wanted to marry someone, and you'd bring a cow, but if she was really special, you'd offer 2 cows. you know, and the village would go, ooh, ah, you know, I mean, whoa, he brought 2 cows, or maybe 2 cows and a calf, you know, whoa, you know. And true story, this man comes up and he says, I want your daughter. So it comes the time of that, and everybody's wondering, you know, what he's going to bring. And he comes into the village with 7 cows. And no one in that village could ever recall a time when anyone had ever paid more than 5 cows for anyone, let alone 7 cows that he brought for this woman. And the story, as you can imagine, unfolds that the village began to see her as a very beautiful woman. It changed her very life. Why? Because of the price paid. See, you can imagine, here comes this servant from Abraham, and he comes up and says, look, I want to bring Rebekah home so that she can be, you know, the wife for his son, who, by the way, Isaac's quite old by then. And he says, and to demonstrate the value, he puts all this gold on her. And then when the family says, you know, we agree too, then he starts to break out the jewels for the brothers and for the mother as well. And I want you to keep that in mind, because what he was doing was establishing a ketubah. Say that with me, ketubah. Ketubah is a formal agreement, and when you don't understand that, you look back and say he did that. But no, he was following the procedures for establishing a ketubah. And in that ketubah, he had to say, you know, here's what I'm going to pay, here's what's going to go on. There is an exchange of money in that process. So I want to start talking about understanding the ketubah with you today, and let's see where it goes, because this is going to lead you somewhere that's absolutely going to excite you in terms of your own life. A ketubah is a special type of Jewish prenuptial agreement. It's considered an integral part of the Jewish marriage ceremony, and it outlines the rights and responsibilities of the groom in relationship to the bride. The ketubah is all about what the groom is going to do in relationship to the bride. Absolutely amazing. I didn't know that a long time ago. I thought, you know. So I got online and I started looking up ketubahs, and I found out that unfortunately, much like the Christian church, we know this from past conversations, that within Judaism there's been an accommodation to modern culture. I mean, you know, if you go just look up synagogues, there's New Age synagogues, there's believe what you want synagogues. I mean, just because you have a Jew in a synagogue doesn't mean you have somebody who believes in Torah or who, you know, is even faithful to any of the teachings of the Word of God. And so in ketubahs, that it's, you know, unless you get to an Orthodox site and find an Orthodox ketubah, I mean, there's ketubahs for gays and lesbians, there's ketubahs for, you know, interfaith things. Most of them are what they call egalitarian. You know, here's what the woman does, here's what the man does, you know, and they kind of, I'll do this, you do this, much like you might find in a Protestant prenuptial agreement. But that's not what a ketubah was historically, nor is it in the Orthodox communities around the world. A ketubah is an outline of the rights and responsibilities of the groom in relationship to the bride. Absolutely amazing. Now listen to this. The rabbis in ancient times insisted on the marriage couple entering into a ketubah as a protection for the wife. For all the male dominance you might think when you're reading through Torah and everything like that, the man does, and who's the woman and all this kind of stuff, the ketubah, the rabbis saw for centuries. The ketubah is a document designed to protect the woman, to protect the wife. Interesting. It acted as a replacement for the biblical mohar. The mohar was the price paid by the groom to the bride or her parents for the marriage. You might know this or read it in English as the bride price. Okay? In that incident about the cow, that's the bride price. And so there was a mohar, and if you read the Torah, you're going to find that's evidence throughout there. You'll find it in Genesis. You'll find it in Exodus, where it talks about the price. In Genesis 34, Shechem said to Dinah's father and brothers, "Let me find favor in your eyes, and I will give you whatever you ask. Make the price for the bride and the gift I'm to bring as great as you like, and I'll pay it." In other words, you just tell me, what you want as a gift and everything, and I'll make sure that it gets there. In Deuteronomy 20, has anyone become pledged to a woman and not married her? Let him go home, or he may die in battle, and someone else may marry her. It's talking about the fact if you've entered into this engagement, you already have a ketubah. And God said if you're under a ketubah, you've got this and you haven't yet come to the marriage, that man is exempt from going to war. We're not going to put him in a place where he might be killed. And now here she is. She's formally engaged but can't consummate the marriage. And so the ketubah, or the bride price, was established. But it was interestingly, because it's always viewed as what we're going to pay the father for his daughter. But in the ketubah, it's what you're going to pay the daughter. What are you going to pay to her? And there's a reason for that. That if you want to marry a woman and you're going to have a ketubah, the question is, what are you giving her? And it's not going down to, favorite things and finding a little engraved thing and giving it to her. But this is a substantial engagement. Now, in the bride price, what happened was that you might be a young man and there's a young woman and you want to marry her, but you just don't have the $50,000. Come on, you're just starting out in your career. You don't have 50 grand to do that. And so what was happening to a lot culturally, socially, what was happening in Jewish culture is men were getting married later and later and later because they simply couldn't come up with the bride price. And the ketubah really became an agreement that allowed you to pay it over a longer period of time. And I'm going to explain that in a minute. It's an installment bride. Yeah, an installment bride. Glory to the second thing that you'll find if you look in Exodus and Deuteronomy 22, that if a woman was violated sexually prior to marriage, there was a bride price attached to that. In other words, you just can't go do that. If you violated a woman, the bride price was paid as if you had married her. Okay? God didn't treat that any differently. The ketubah, therefore, became a mechanism whereby the amount due to the wife came to be paid in the event of a cessation of the marriage, either by death or divorce. And we're going to look at one in a minute to see how that works. In other words, I want to marry Donna, and so I have a ketubah, and I say, I am going to agree that $50,000 is yours. And I can either give it to her then, and she puts it in her savings account, or as we'll see in the ketubah, that's the first claim on my estate. Should I die, she's got the first claim. That first $50,000, the ketubah stands there and says, that's hers. Doesn't even belong to the estate. That's hers. And should I divorce her, that first $50,000 is hers. It's a protection for the wife. Okay? It's a protection for the wife. And there's a spiritual connotation, so some of you, if you're smart, you're running that out already. But we'll get to that in a while. So in a traditional Jewish wedding, the ketubah is signed by two witnesses, and traditionally it's read out loud under the huppah. So as you stand under the huppah, the ketubah is read out loud, but it's signed by two witnesses who are not of the family lineage, who testify that, number one, this is what the man said, and number two, the woman agreed to it. That's what the point of the witnesses is. So sometimes, I didn't agree to that. Well, we got two witnesses that say, we heard him say that, and that's what he's going to be held liable to. By the way, a ketubah in Israel is legally valid. In the United States, it's questionable whether it's legally valid, but it certainly in civil court has some standing. I mean, they will give it some weight. But in Israel, a ketubah today is absolutely legally valid. Okay? So to get this picture, here's this ketubah, and so you have a ceremony, and the ketubah is signed, and it's read, and at the end of the ceremony, who gets the ketubah? It goes to the wife. Goes to the wife. Now, these have become very beautiful documents, and I tell you, you can spend, I was amazed, you can spend hundreds, probably even thousands, but hundreds of dollars to get a nicely, drawn one with in Aramaic. Most of them are in Aramaic, some are in Hebrew, and you might have them translated into English, and they frame them and put them on the wall, usually in the bedroom. They usually don't put them in there in a public place, but they put it in a private place like the bedroom. So, to recap, a ketubah is a marriage contract that explains the basic material, conjugal, and moral responsibilities of the husband to the wife. The obligations of the wife to her husband are not recorded in a ketubah. That's not part of it. Very interesting. It is signed by the groom as well as the two witnesses. The wife doesn't even have to sign it. The groom is signing it. It is given to the bride during the wedding ceremony. And the purpose, as I said, is to protect the woman's right during the marriage. The husband undertakes in the ketubah to protect his wife, to work for her, to provide her with her marital rights, and with all that is necessary to sustain her. That's what he's promising. Quite amazing, isn't it? It is forbidden, in Orthodox circles, it is forbidden for a Jewish couple to live together without a ketubah. If you lose it, you must get another one rewritten. If you got your house burned down and it was destroyed, then you got to go down to the rabbi and you got to get another ketubah. It's forbidden to live together without a ketubah. I'm ahead of myself. That's why I'm jumping around, because I know where this is going spiritually, and it's absolutely amazing. Okay? Let's take a look at some slides up here. Maybe we can, you got those there? Okay. Let's start running through here, and let's see what we got. The ketubah. There it is. Can you all read it? Okay. You got the two signatures down here. You can figure that out. Okay, so let's look at it in English. Here we go. The ketubah. On the whatever day of the week, the something day of the month, blah, in the year 5,700 and blah, since the creation of the world, the era according to which we reckon here in the city of, you follow that, son of so-and-so, to this virgin, Mary, daughter of. Okay? Interesting, all the ketubahs have that in that. It's an expectation that when you're looking at an Orthodox wedding, that you're dealing with a virgin. Isn't that interesting? All right, let's move on to the next part of it. Be my wife. This is what the husband says. Be my wife according to the practice of Moses and Israel, and I will cherish, honor, and support and maintain you in accordance with the custom of Jewish husbands who cherish, honor, support, and maintain their wives faithfully. And I here present you with the marriage gift of virgins, 200 silver zunum, which belongs to you according to the law of Moses and Israel. And I will also give you your food, clothing, necessities, and live with you as husband and wife according to universal custom. And Miss So-and-so, this virgin, consented and became his wife. Two parts to it. Go ahead, bring up that first one. First is a proposal. Be my wife. So I go and I say, would you be my wife according to the practice of Moses and Israel? That's my proposal. And there's a little formula for it, by the way, that is used in all of them. It goes back thousands of years. The next one, Steve, that's that one. Keep going. The second part is the promise of basic support. This is what the man is promising. This isn't the wedding. This is simply in order to get engaged. Okay? I will cherish, honor, support, and maintain you in accordance with the custom of Jewish husbands who faithfully honor, support, and maintain their wives. That's the basic thing. I'm going to support you. I'm going to cherish you. I'm going to honor you. I'm going to live that out with you. And do we have another one there, Steve? Yeah. Number 3 is the provision or the bride price. And I here present you with the marriage gift of virgins, or 200 silver zunum. Now, the zunum is simply that comes out of the Persian kind of culture in terms of the money, but there's a price in there. We could translate it into dollars. Now, that is not locked into that price. There's a minimum. We're going to find that, you would not go to a young lady that you want to marry today and I'm going to give you $200 sort of. You might say that, it would be a lot. I present you with a marriage gift. Now, you're not married. Okay? That's where we get the custom of the engagement ring. Okay? But it's a gift. And who is it to? It's to her. It's a sum given to her. Okay? Which belongs to you. I've had couples come to me and they say, that somebody was engaged and the engagement got broken. Should I give them the ring back? Excuse me, it's yours. Do what you want. Now, if you want to use it for something, take the diamond out of the setting and reset the diamond. Amen. But see, and I've had guys say, well, that's mine. You violated the whole concept of a ketubah there. I'm giving you this. This is yours. It's not mine. This is yours, okay? which belong to you, and I will also give you your food, your clothing, your necessities. And sometimes people, because we don't have an Eastern mindset, we miss that next line, and live with you as husband and wife. That has to do with the conjugal rights a woman has. And our crazy, mixed up sexual culture, we always focus on the man has his rights. The Jewish is just the opposite. We are going to protect the rights of a woman to sexual intimacy with her husband. Why? Well, stop and think back in that culture. You know, well, I have a wife and she doesn't give me a male baby, I'm going to get me another wife. You know, and if you looked in an age of marital where you might have 2 or 3 wives. No. This ketubah was guaranteeing that there would be an intimate relationship between the husband and the wife. And what I find interesting is that the Jews thought there may be a problem with the man, not a problem with the woman. Okay, let's go to the next one. The trousseau that she brought to him, this is all still written out there, the trousseau that she brought to him from her father's house in silver, gold, valuable clothing, furniture, and bedclothes, all this Mark the said bridegroom, accepted in the sum of 100 silver pieces or whatever it is, and the bridegroom consented to increase this amount from his own property with the sum of 100 silver pieces, making it all 200 silver pieces. What's this about? When a woman got married, the father gives her something to take with her. Custom is he gives her at least one set of good clothing. He would probably give her, her bedroom set to take, or furniture that she might have. He's giving that as so she can set up a household. So the setting up of the household was that the father says to the daughter, "Come on, women. I mean, this is so reversed from what So the father, again, the man has a responsibility.